All right, everybody. Let's see where everybody is at tonight. Bring that up. Okay, perfect. Let's kick this over to Facebook land. Let's get this streaming. Stay tuned. It's all the pre-webinar stuff. All right. Advantage Health Center going live. All right. While that's prepping, people are pouring into the webinar. I see all you guys. Make sure you guys can put your questions. I will try and get to your questions for sure. But tonight, thank you guys for all of you guys that are watching online. And here, welcome to the upstairs studio. Not a lot of you guys have seen this view because this is where Dr. Tyler and I do a lot of masterminding. And this is the space, this is the new health center. But tonight we're not really talking about the new health center. We are going to jump in to what we're going to talk about tonight. You guessed it, stress. And not only just stress, not only are we going to talk about stress, but how many of you guys can relate to this picture right here? How many of you guys have just felt like, you've had that day? Picture you've had that day. Maybe you're running late to the office, your kids wouldn't want to get dressed. One was puking, one had a fever. Now they can't go to school. Now you got to try and find daycare, but daycare is closed. All of these things. Then you got to stay at home and PTO, everything else in between. How many of you have felt like this beautiful young lady right here? When you just want to say, you know what, screw it, screw stress, forget this. I'm not dealing with it. And I know in the last couple of years, we've had plenty of opportunities of this, neighbors have been divided, houses have been divided, families have been divided, all this stuff. And it just seems to build and build and build. And the lunacy of it all still seems to continue. That's why tonight I've been promising you guys, I'm going to give you a frame of stress that nobody else has ever given you. We're not going to talk about, oh, here's what you can do to help manage. I'm not interested in managing stress. I am done with the conversation of managing stress, managing sickness, managing pain. I think managing a problem is permitting it to exist in your life. Maybe bold, maybe brash. Listen, I've been called a lot of things in a lot of years, but one thing that nobody can take away is the results that we get for the people in the Advantage Army. And so I wanted to encourage you guys, you're tuning into Facebook, type in your comments. I'll probably get to them after the webinar. Later on tonight, I'll read every single one of them. I promise, good, bad, or otherwise, and share this content, share, because one, this slide is amazing. This is the best slide I've ever made in my entire career when it comes to webinars. And so without further ado, here's what we're going to cover tonight. We won't go long. We'll go maybe 20, 25 minutes. But I'm going to show you my top 3 strategies to screw stress. Now, why? Why am I qualified to talk about these 3 things tonight? Well, I'll tell you, I'm sitting in $1.6 million worth of stress. When it comes down to it, taking on this health center was really truly about saying, hey, I care enough about the people in my community, the people who drive hours, even out of state, that go to Advantage Health Center. I want to give them a world-class healing experience. I want to bring in systems, procedures, protocols in the natural healthcare world that they're not going to get anywhere else. Do you think when, I grew up in small town Nebraska, it was about half the size of Jordan, Minnesota. And I grew up and I'm like, man, if I had, a tenth of the access to the services that we provide, how much better would my life have been? How much healthier would my family be? And I think about those things. And so when it came to creating this office space and putting these things together, because we're going to hit changing the frame, win the game, dare to compare, and reset the mainframe, you are going to know what those three things mean and how it's going to impact your life and why it's so important to spread this message. But when I was building this building and WIT Construction, and we came together and we said, hey, why are we doing this? There's a moment where you're saying, why? And it's for you watching tonight. It's for the individual who will probably watch this, her and her husband, who they were in for a vitamin IV. And I remember distinctly stopping in and towards the end of the night, and I'll get into this in a minute. This will be the last little story here for now. And I remember she said, listen, I feel so abandoned at my workplace. I feel like everybody else has different healthcare views than I do. And I feel persecuted. I feel abandoned. And my husband and I, we listened to your videos and it is so inspiring. And she said, thank you. And literally I was almost like choked up. I was holding back some emotion because I'd never met this individual. I had no idea they watched any content that we produce or the messages that we share, but it was for that person that we built this health center. It was for that moment. And I will tell you, God truly had his hand in it, in the divine order of things. And so that's why tonight we're going to get into the screw stress, because I know there's plenty of it out there. And I'm going to help equip the people I love and care about in order they can be like this little lady and they realize they're in a position to say screw stress. So here we go. Change the frame, win the game. I'm gonna share with you something that's so powerful. It's called the frame that we see the world through. We have a worldview. We have this view from the time we were young on how we view stress in terms of, how our mother, how our father dealt with stress, how our neighbors, our brothers, sisters, we learn these things on how we deal with this thing called stress. I remember, learning about stress and I didn't even know what the word was. And yet my mom would have a migraine. Her adaptation, her body's inability to adapt to stress was a migraine. And I remember being little and going in there, and the only thing I could do was take the washcloth off her forehead, rinse it in some cold water, and replace it over her head, and trying to give her some relief as a young man. And thinking, well, what is stress and why is this doing this to my mom? Like, I'm going to do everything I can to prevent stress from hurting my mom. That's what I wanted to do. And so this worldview, we all have it. And I will tell you that most of it is this worldview when it comes around stress. It's absolutely messed up. It's absolutely wrong. It's 100% wrong, because we think we have to manage stress. We think we have to get back in and say, hey, I am supposed to fight this invisible thing that's there, good, bad, or otherwise. There's good stress, there's bad stress, but I'm supposed to fight it. I'm supposed to keep it out of my life. And when I don't, subconsciously, I'm going to feel like a failure. I'm gonna have self-guilt, self-shame. And then I'm just gonna deal with it in one way, shape, or form. Maybe eating, sugary sweets. I'm just gonna eat my stress away. Some people over-exercise their stress. Some people yell. Some people vent. Some people are, so full of stress you can't even be around them. And so this worldview, I want to let you guys know that when it comes to stress, is that definitions matter. Definitions are everything, and definitions are everything in life. When we see this in terms of, what is health, what is sickness, all these things, all of these definitions come into play. And the crazy thing is, when it comes to stress, we are so stuck on a definition that says we're not supposed to have any quantity of stress in our life, and that we spend all our time, energy, and money in trying to reduce the quantity of stress in our lives, when it's really what we're after is the capacity. Could we really have the capacity to handle more stress? And I want to encourage you tonight, if we can shift this frame, if you're sitting there, comment, let me know if this is resonating with you. Hit that like button, hit that share button. Show me that this is resonating with you, Errol. And I want you to stay till the end, because I've got a special offer for you guys to help develop this in you. Listen, I'm trained in this. I know how to build capacity in human beings because I've done it with myself. And my wife will tell you I'm radically improved man than the man she even married. So what I want to get in this first thing is that frames are everything. If the definition of stress and the frame you've been carrying on your life says, I can't deal with the quantity, I must control the quantity, I must control the stress. It's like trying to lasso the wind. And I grew up in Nebraska where I'd rope calves and rope steers. Listen, that was hard enough at times, although I figured it out. I wasn't too bad at it, but it's like roping the wind. If you're going to sit there and try and control stress, manage stress, it's garbage. Erase that out of your mind right now. And if you're taking notes, right, it's like, I will build my capacity to handle stress. You'll build your capacity to embrace it, to where the problems that you used to have, the problems that you used to think were big problems, you now can walk through steadfast, confident, and certain and face the day. Because think about it, like, stress affects us all. How is it that some people are able to, quote unquote, handle more stress? It's their capacity. It's their capacity. Here's the thing. Second thing I want to jump into here. It's called Dare to Compare. Dare to compare. For those of you who are watching this and seeing this, what's on the screen? Can you just type it in the comments? Type it in the comments. and no crappy comments, if you know what I mean. It's a picture of a toilet. If you guys are listening to this on a podcast or wherever it may be, there's a picture of a toilet. And here's the frame, dare to compare. This is a strategy that I noticed over time because growing up and then building the practice, and my first couple of years of practice were so full of stress. We're so full of stress. In fact, there was one time I remember I was sitting in my office and I was like sitting there probably praying to God for patience, praying that someone would show up and pay me for this service because my hands were on fire. I wanted to help people so stinking bad. I couldn't believe that they didn't know this thing about chiropractic could change their life. And I'm sitting there and I had no patience, and literally had no patience for patients. And I remember the Culligan guy came in and he was delivering one of the invoices for my Culligan water cooler for patients. And he could tell I was depressed. He could tell something was wrong. And in that moment, it was so powerful because as he was giving me the invoice, it was almost like he knew I needed a pep talk. And his name was Glenn, Glynn. I remember, and I remember looking up and seeing the name badge on his shirt. And he's just like, you know what? My friend was a chiropractor, and in the beginning it was kind of rough too, but he just kept going. And he was telling me all these stories about how great it was. And he planted that seed in there. And I was like, man, you know what? I just got to keep going. But this dare to compare concept is think about this. There are 4.5 billion people. You're probably like, why am I showing you a picture of a toilet? There's 4.5 billion people in the world that do not have access to a working toilet. Could you imagine that? 4.5 billion people. Nearly half the world's, well, that's over half the world's population doesn't have a working toilet. So if you're sitting there, maybe literally watching me on your toilet, you're already ahead of the game with 4.5 billion people. So this daring to compare comes when we're take your scenario, take what you think your greatest stress is and look around, because there's chances are there's someone within a 5-mile radius, within 10-mile radius that could even be fighting for their life, dying of cancer, dying of heart disease, dying of preventable healthcare scenarios that are on their deathbed right now, begging and praying to God that they have the opportunity that you do. Can you imagine that? 4.5 billion people don't have a working toilet. Dare to compare. I oftentimes will sit in Pastor Jonathan, our pastor at Creative Church. I'll sit there and he comes down once in a while and he'll get his vitamin IV drip, and I'll ask him how it's going. And he'll share like 2 or 3 things that just came up within the last 10 minutes. And those 2 or 3 things seem like bigger problems than I've had to deal with for the whole month. And I always tell him, listening to your problems, I always want to say if there's this table in front of us and we had to put our problems on this table, you put your problems on this table and I'll put my problems on this table, and we'll examine them and we'll see how nasty, how gnarly these problems are. There's a good chance I'm going to take my problems back because I don't want anything to do with your problems. It makes me feel better. This dare to compare. Are you willing enough to look at your scenario and compare it and seeing how truly bad it is? Because the stories we tell ourselves, remember, it's that quantity. We shouldn't have it in our life in the first place. And the stories we begin to tell ourselves begin to build and build and build. And a story, whether it's true or not, think about this. Let's take an untrue story, a lie told loud enough, told long enough, told consistently enough will seem like the truth. And we build these stories around it. And so I want to encourage you guys tonight to dare to compare when it comes to your stories. And finally, the third tip tonight is going to be reset the mainframe. Now, what is this? Let's be real. I know this as a healthcare provider for 14 years, that stress takes a toll on the body. We age. I've got gray in my beard. There's things that change over time. But what are you going to do? And how can you address the system that controls it all? What controls the adrenal glands on top of your kidneys that are under stress? And we have this thing called adrenal fatigue. What controls your heart rate, your breathing rate, your O2 levels, all these things that are connected into how well you adapt and overcome and work through and build your capacity to stress. Where's it all tied into? Where's the wiring of it all? And you guys should know where I'm going with this. It is right here. It is in the 6 inches between your ears, in your skull, between your ears, the most important real estate ever. It's your brain. Your brain, your spinal cord, your nervous system are your number one adapting system to stress. Why do you think I love being a chiropractor? If you look at this picture here, you got your motor nerves, your autonomic nerves, and you got your sensory nerves. The sensory nerves basically tell us when we hurt or if we're hot or cold. And we gauge all our life, all our health in this 10% of the nerve system. It's not very much. Not every nerve tells you if you're in pain or you're not, yet we sit there and we judge our health on how we feel. Listen, how you feel is the poorest yardstick to measure your health that you could ever do. And so in our office, we actually have a system where we can measure the autonomic, the motor nerves. We can see if your body's balanced or not, fight or flight or not, and go in there like a mechanic, fine tuning a Ferrari and saying, there, get it back out on that highway, rev it up, crank it up, enjoy it, because life is meant to be enjoyed. Life is meant to be enjoyed, you guys. And I want to encourage you. The simple fact of it is that when we can measure these things, I can tell you when you're balanced or not. I can tell you things before you feel them. If we find it before you feel it, you can guarantee we can help your body heal it. And that's about the closest you're going to get to a wrap from me tonight. But as we do wrap up this thing and as we go through, I want to review, the three things as we look at this. Remember, changing the frame to win the game, understanding that it's capacity you're after, not trying to control the quantity, building your capacity. Chiropractic has an amazing ability to build your capacity. In fact, we get comments like this all the time. I look from Zach, I got to see him yesterday. And, he talks about his first visit to our office and how great it was. And Marlene, an amazing real estate agent that I've had the pleasure of taking care of her husband and her for over a decade. It's about helping these people adapt to stress better. And I'll tell you what, listen, I'm humbled by this. I actually looked today, there's 152 5-star Google reviews. We got some 4s, we got a 3. Yeah, because guess what? Real life, I'm not everybody's chiropractor. In fact, I'll find you, if you're watching this, wherever you're watching, find a chiropractor that fits you. Chiropractors are like restaurants. You may not like different styles and flavors of restaurants, but you still got to eat. You still deserve an amazing experience. And so Jay, I love this guy. He's great. He's like, great people who care about your well-being. You won't be disappointed. We get to take care of some amazing, amazing people. So encouraging you guys tonight, if you do want to go over to the website, you can use the code Screw Stress. So you basically go to the website, hit contact us at the top. If you're local, if you're not even local, we have people drive hours away. But if you do that, if you're saying, gosh, I really want to get checked, I want to get scanned, I want to see what's going on under the hood to see my capacity to handle some stress. If you want to take this one step further beyond the tips tonight, we'll save you some money on that, obviously. So you can use in the contact us, you can just put Screw Stress under that. Don't say screw you, because that's not very nice. But that's going to be something that you guys can go over and do. So one more time as we recap and we line this up to send you off into this, please share, do all those things, like, comment. I can't wait to read the comments, you guys. But change the frame, win the game, dare to compare, and do what you need to do to reset the hardwiring of your body. Do that. Honor yourself and get your spinal cord and nervous system communication checked by a capable chiropractor. There's a lot of them. And if it's our office and you choose us, we're honored for that. So I encourage you guys, listen, life's better when you're well adjusted. Our mission here is to educate and empower and eradicate lifestyle diseases. And you just took one step closer to getting the knowledge, but without action, knowledge is useless. So go out there, put these things to use. As we wrap this, if there's any final questions in the comments, we will get to those. I'll check them all on Facebook as well. But thank you for joining me tonight. Have an amazing night. And remember, life is better when you're well adjusted.